wrong. No, that's fine. I just, sometimes I have to ask. It's wrong.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. I think that may be the first time I got to say that, 2020. Hope everybody's been writing it. The Board of County Commissioners Business Meeting. Would you all please stand and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Ingles, we have certification of our agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my office has reviewed all items on today's agenda, and they all meet legal approval.
And do any commissioners have any disclosure for any item on our agenda?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
And I have none. Thank you. So our first order of business today, we have a special presentation from the Sheriff's Office. This is quite an amazing, extraordinary situation. So the Sheriff is asked to do a presentation. So Sheriff Spurlock.
Thank you, Commissioners, County Manager, and Lance Ingles, County Attorney. Thank you guys for allowing me to take a little bit of time up front with you. So I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a very successful case that the Douglas County Sheriff's Office was a part of. And I especially want to thank Doug, County Manager, and the board, where I called for a special meeting with you to brief you on the potential extraordinary costs that might happen with a case that happened just days before the end of the year, really, in December. Our concern of the need to possibly extend expenditures for an out-of-state investigation. So thank you for letting me have that meeting, and for Doug working through our finance side to making sure that we were able to get that done. I had a number of conversations with other folks, and unless you're in this business, they probably aren't aware of it, but I needed to brief you folks to say that we are at the end of our budget year, and it's likely that we are going to expend or could exceed our budget. And so thank you for allowing me to have that presentation and to work through staff to make sure that we were able to find the appropriate funding to get us to the end of the year and get through this case. Because as you know, we sent a number of detectives out of state, and those can ramp up costs very quickly. So thank you for that. We are just 2 days short of the 40th anniversary of the kidnapping, murder, and rape of Helene Przynski. And what is good is that we have captured him. It was overdue, but we now have him in custody. So he is in the custody of the Douglas County Sheriff and the Judicial District here in the 18th. Over the last 40 years, over 125 police officers were involved in that investigation. Majority of those officers are from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and some of them are sitting here in the audience that we invited and to be a part of it. The Honorable Marshall Weaver is here, the Sheriff of Douglas County, is part of it. He was part of the original forming of working through some of these cases. So Marshall, thank you for being here and being a part of it, and I wanted to recognize him for being a part of that. Without a doubt, every person that worked on this case over the last 40 years, move my hands down here, maybe that's it. I can't thank all of them. Of all of those officers, 125 plus officers, I don't want to mention all their names because I would miss someone and be disrespectful to the work that they've done. But every officer that worked in that case played a critical role in the outcome of us receiving a warrant for the arrest of a suspect for the murder of Helene Przynski. And so I want to thank all of them here now. Thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for your portion of what you did. And so publicly, I want to do that again and thank you for being a part of it. There were a lot of people. Our relationship with the Colorado Bureau of Investigations really made a difference. 40 years ago, when we had a crime, they didn't talk about DNA. They didn't even know what DNA was. It might have been on the back burner of some scientists working through that. But 40 years ago, our office called the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, said, "Can you help us in this crime scene?" And they responded, and because of their extraordinary professionalism, they captured DNA evidence for us at that crime scene and at the autopsy, to where we were later able to use that evidence to make a difference in this case today. And I say that because it is so important to realize that the way police work was done 40 years ago and today is quite different. But 40 years ago, their crime scene people knew that they needed to collect every possible piece of evidence for future, not knowing what the future was going to bring. And I have thanked CBI personally, the director, John Camper, and I've made mention of them numerous times to thank those people that were working on that case are long gone. But because of their professionalism and getting this done made a huge difference. And so I want to bring that attention and thank them. Obviously, the detective that was assigned to this case at the time of the arrest is important because she got us across the line. Detective Shannon Jensen really became a subject matter expert in the genetic genealogy, and her tenacity and her determination got us to that other point. There were a lot of other folks involved, and I'm not disrespecting them by not mentioning their names. I'm just saying that there were a lot of detectives that worked on this. She was a lead detective on this case, is still today, that made a huge difference in making sure that we got the information available to us through genealogy and then to the DNA, to CBI, to get to the right suspect. Also, there were some great leadership in that. Lieutenant Tommy Barella, who's in charge of the cold case, Captain Brad Hayden, who is the captain, the commander over that. Those folks and their leadership direct and guided us to where we're at today. And so I want to thank them. Also, Chief Steve Johnson, who was put in charge of the overall investigation once we had the DNA and we knew we were going to get this person. There was a lot of things that happened in really a very short period of time. He was directed to really get everything that we needed in place. And the importance of that is, and I thanked him a number of times privately, but publicly, his past life as a CBI agent and a deputy director of CBI, and his connections to the state helped us get CBI involved, the FBI, and the Bureau to help us with interviewing issues, and then also his relationship with Colorado State Patrol, where we were able to make the phone call and said, "We need your jet, and we need to fly to Union County, Florida, and pick up a suspect, and we need this done in very short order." His relationship with those folks, his skills, and his ability in this world, in this realm, made a huge difference. So I want to recognize Chief Deputy Steve Johnson on this. Make a difference. Without a doubt, there's some of them in the audience, but our task force detectives and our impact detectives went over on Thanksgiving holiday and carried into the beginning of December and almost into the Christmas holiday, where they spent a tremendous amount of time on surveillance and investigation and interviewing, collecting DNA, and really making that next step, communicating with our command post here in Colorado and working with the Union County Sheriff and folks there to make a difference. I want to thank those folks too and recognize them as a big unit of taking the step and saying, we'll go on the holiday and we'll make a difference. And so I want to thank them. That's huge for people to leave their families over the holiday season and work 12-hour shifts on surveillance and collecting evidence. So some of them are here in the audience, and thank you guys for being here. A couple of them right there that did some yeoman's work in making a difference in collecting evidence and surveillance of the suspect. Without a doubt, we wouldn't have been able to get here without a team effort. And that's really what we had, is that the Douglas County Sheriff's Office with other entities coming together and making a huge difference and finding the killer of Helene Brzezinski. Obviously, we've had a number of people that played a big role in dealing with the family and helping us. And I know victim advocate Andrea Bradbury's here. And she's assigned to this case, and she made a huge difference in dealing with the tensions and the stress that comes from notifying family members that we've arrested a suspect in the killing of their family. And so I'm told that made a huge difference in the family members. Janet Johnson, the surviving sister, and other friends. So together we made a huge difference. One of the things that really is important is when I first became the sheriff, I said, we're going to make a difference in the cold case. And so we permanently assigned someone in cold case. We created a cold case review voluntary team. Some of them are in the audience as well today, to help work on these cases, bring the case together to a point to where the detectives can make decisions, and they follow up on a variety of different angles. And the cold case review team worked very closely and tirelessly with the detectives to get us to where we're at today. We're continuing to do that. We have 25 still open cases, and we'll continue to make that difference. But most importantly, I want to just brief you and talk to you a little bit about Helene Brzezinski. I can talk a lot about all the things that we've done through all of the agencies, the sheriffs that were before me, and the cases that the folks that worked on this case. It is a little bit sad that I have a very small window of who Helene Brzezinski was before she was murdered, kidnapped and murdered. But what I do know is that as a 21-year-old young lady here from college, doing an internship with a friend who was doing also an internship at another university, came here to Colorado and loved it. Loved everything that we had that was about Colorado. We had the opportunity to review some letters that she had drafted back to friends and family about how excited she was of walking around downtown Denver and finding new things in Colorado to do, and how exciting it was for her to see this new chapter in her life. And within 2 weeks of her coming to Colorado and spending time with her aunt and uncle, living with her aunt and uncle, she was abducted and murdered. The key thing about her is that you talk to anyone back then, and we've had lots of conversation with them. What a beautiful young woman, excited to start her new career and her adventure into potentially being involved in media, possibly being involved in the news, lots of opportunities in her life. And to be able to call her family, the only surviving member of her family is her sister, Janet Johnson, to share with her that we caught the suspect who killed her sister, was, as I said before, a little bittersweet, because it was good to share with her, hey, we've caught someone, but also let them know that justice will be served. And in hearing and learning more about Helene Brzezinski and who she was and what her life hoped to have been. And so, yes, I thank you for allowing me to share with you and you folks to recognize the men and women of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office that got us to this point. It's also so important to remember who we're fighting for and who we did this for. And I know that the detectives that came before Shannon Jensen and the sheriffs that came before me were able to see her photograph, and we're able to see the details of the case. And we're always dedicated and working towards that. And because of technology and the things that have changed in our world, we were able to do that. And we were able to put the case together, get DNA to match, and be able to get a warrant from the district court here in Douglas County and have him extradited back to Colorado to face charges. And that's where we're at today. And you know, we have a great agency, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, with the thanks to the commissioners for your funding and the support from the county attorney and the county manager. We have a great agency that's done awesome work. And pretty much everyone that's here representing Douglas County Sheriff's Office had a role in that, played a role in getting us to the arrest. And so in front of you and the listening audience, you know, I want to thank the men and women of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, those of you who worked on this case, who are part of this case, who have made a difference. A lot of task force guys over here that spent time away from their family. Thank you all for doing that. Without your work, no matter how small it was at the time, it made a difference because we were able to put that in an affidavit and get the suspect arrested. Volunteers, the cold case review team being here, painstakingly working on Sundays, going through files and looking at notes and stuff and sharing that with the detective and the leadership makes a huge difference. You know, we have Attila Dennis in the room, who was the initial interviewer and made the difference of getting to where we're at today. So I want to thank all of them publicly, and I wish I could point to everybody and say, okay, these are all them. But what I will do, and I'll ask for your permission, is for all the members of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office or anyone who ever worked on the case, would you please stand real quick to be recognized? So thanks for allowing me to have this little bit of time. And I think that the people of Douglas County should be proud of the men and women of Douglas County Sheriff's Office for what they've done, what they will continue to do. And these are very, very difficult cases to work. And we were able to, with the grace of God, getting some good luck and good guidance and some tenacity and hard work of the men and women that stand behind me. We're here today. So thank you very much for allowing me to have this opportunity, and I appreciate your time.
Sheriff Spurlock, on behalf of the board, I think you have certainly touched us in many ways with your whole briefing on all the way from the start when you pulled us together in December until now. And I think you've done a wonderful job. You exemplify perfection. And I know you use the word luck, and I know what you really believe in luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and your men and women performed. So we thank you so much from behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and the citizens of Douglas County, and to the family, certainly. The wonderful work. We really appreciate the dedication, the time, and the extra effort. And it just doesn't come from putting time in. It really comes from the heart, and that's very obvious. So from the Board of County Commissioners, we thank you so much, Sheriff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I might interject as well, I just want to especially thank you, Sheriff, and all of the members of law enforcement that are here today. When we think about great crime scene investigation from 40 years ago, and truly a paragon example of what it means to be in law enforcement today, this represents a tremendous accomplishment and the coordination of so many individuals over the holidays, sacrificing time. And so just want to say a thanks not only to you, but to the spouses that also had to sacrifice during this time to make a wonderful accomplishment occur. You know, today there are 16 cold cases listed. Maybe it's 25, but I'm told there's 16 cold cases listed from 1976 through 2015. And the one listed from 1980 of Helene Przinski is stamped solved. And not only as a county commissioner, but as a husband and a father of a young woman, I want to thank you for what you do and the passion and dedication to justice that you bring to your work every day.
I think my fellow commissioners have said it all, and I would just like to say thank you to everyone here who was involved in this.
Thanks. And please take no disrespect, but my guess is that when we're done with this and you're on your regular business, there's going to be a lot of people stand up and go back to work. But thank you. I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable by not by leaving and vacating. So while you do your business. So thank you again very much.
Very well. I'll give a moment for people to leave. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being patient while we had that special presentation. No doubt very important, and great work all the way around. At this time, we are now on item number 1, citizen comment, organization comment. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding any item that is or isn't on the agenda, I should say any item that isn't on the agenda or any other item, now is the time to come forward. Seeing no one, I will close item number 1. Bring it on. Number 2 is our consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board regarding any item on our consent agenda A through AD? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion of an item.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. First of all, I'd like to state that we have pulled item S from the agenda to be heard later. So my motion is to approve the requests in all items A through R and T through AD of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. That moves us along to item number 3, our regular agenda. It's an intergovernmental agreement between Douglas County and the Douglas County School District in an amount of $6,823,182 for school physical security and supportive mental health resources. Presenting for staff is Project Manager Tina Dale.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tina Dale representing Community and Resource Services. The request before you today is to approve the School Safety and Protection and Mental Health Services Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA, between Douglas County and the Douglas County School District. The purpose of the agreement is to supplement the voter-approved bonds and enhance the planned upgrades within the Douglas County School District. On May 13th, 2019, the Board of County Commissioners authorized $10 million to improve the physical safety and provide mental health services for Douglas County school children, teachers, and staff. Funding priorities were established, a competitive grant process was developed, and the applications submitted were evaluated. The Board of County Commissioners awarded $6,823,182 through this proposed IGA to the school district. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the IGA between Douglas County and the Douglas County School District as it complies with all county approval standards and procedural guidelines. This concludes my presentation, and staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tina. Questions for staff at this time?
I really don't have a question. I just want to thank you and all the staff who worked on this project, because I don't think any of us had any idea what kind of workload we were putting on staff when the three of us came up with this idea. but you and Jennifer and Dan and so many people worked on spreadsheets over and over and over again, getting all of the best information together for us. And I don't know how else to thank you and let you know my appreciation other than just simply saying thank you.
Thank you. It was actually an honor to be a part of this.
You know, Tina, when we go around the rest of the state and other elected leaders say, you know, wow, how did Douglas County get so much done in such a short amount of time? Really, we can't take any of the credit as commissioners. The heavy lift and the hard work and the day-to-day grind of pulling together charts and graphs and all sorts of information for us and the calls that you made. We were always so encouraged as commissioners every time any of you came up to our boardroom and briefed us on all of the updates that you had received, and it really made an incredible impact, I think, in the lives of not only our entire community, but certainly this board. So thank you so much.
Dean, I think commissioners, my fellow commissioners certainly stated the importance of this item, no doubt, but the effort by staff. You never cease to amaze us. The multiple spreadsheets, the multiple communications, and the detail was phenomenal. In fact, I think we're still maybe even looking at how to shred the numerous documents that were so important. So you kept us busy, no doubt, but we kept you very busy. And we thank you. And it was, Tina, you're the representative, but we know it's representation of many departments and many staff members. And we just are very pleased with the results. Thank you. Tina, I do not see anybody here from the school district. Are you aware if anybody is here from the Douglas County School District?
They were not able to attend today.
Okay. Did they have any words to offer that you may be able to provide?
Much thanks.
Okay.
You were very grateful.
And we certainly know that it was a lot of collaboration. Commissioner Thomas did a lot of work with Rich Payne, with the school district. It was all involved. I know Commissioner Layden was actively pursuing many things, and definitely our two committees, which we will address more at a later time. But I really appreciate that. So seeing we have no one here from the school district, are there any further questions before I open up for anyone in the audience to address the board?
I have none.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board regarding item number 1? And if you would state your name, spell your last name for the record, and your address also.
Certainly, Clinton Doris, Dorris. Address is 2229 Stevens Court, Castle Rock, Colorado. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I also want to heap a bunch of praise on the county and the staff here as the former chair of this committee that helped to work hard to figure out how to help discern the right way to help invest this $13 million. The staff of the county was unbelievable. As an individual that has spent a great deal of his time in government service, I can tell you for a fact that the staff and the committee, of which some of those folks are here today, we went from storming to a highly functioning team faster than I have ever had the pleasure of participating on. And that includes from NASA, that includes from the Pentagon. So that's certainly high praise for the team here and for Mr. DeBoer's team. It's unbelievable. And I think some of that emanates from leadership, certainly from the Board of Commissioners. The other thing, too, that specific praise for the three of you is that I know that finding these funds was not necessarily popular to everybody, even people in your own party. And what I've always told everyone is that when we have a crisis in the county, it's time for everybody that has a county responsibility to step up and find a way to act. And you guys did that. The three of you did that. And then the team followed suit, and the county came to bear, brought what they had to bear on whether it was the police department, the sheriff's department, the fire department, the school district. So pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve, and look forward to seeing how this all plays out in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Doris. And I will hold my comments. I'm going to allow my fellow commissioners to make comments once we close public testimony on the committees. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and bring it to the board for any further questions, deliberation, and comments.
You usually have to wait till the end. Would you like to say your comments on this one first?
Well, I will, there's many compliments to be made. I will first start with my fellow commissioners who really brought this forward in less than 24 hours. And it was a lot of thought process went through because Mr. Doris stated it correctly. It was not easy to find $10 million, and we appreciate the county manager and staff working to be able to give us comfort that it's something we bring forward. So I really want to thank my fellow commissioners. The amount of work done was phenomenal, but again, many kudos to the staff, the hours that have not ended, and you continue to do great work. But I really want to point out the two committees, and Mr. Doris, who spoke, was the chair of the Physical Safety and Security Committee, and we also had the Mental Health Committee. Both committees just did phenomenal work. It was subject matter experts that were put together, and it was just phenomenal, the amount of hours that they put in. Selfless time, and the enthusiasm was just amazing. And we will be recognizing them at a later time, but so we'll bring it on to fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, the definition of integrity is doing the right thing even when it's difficult. And when I look out and see Mr. Clinton Doris and the efforts that he put into this endeavor alongside the rest of his committee members, many of which are here, it's truly a remarkable experience to even be part of something that significant. And when we talk about dollars, I think it's really important, and Chair, thank you for bringing this up, but I think it's really important to acknowledge our county manager, who is always so humble. But when we sat down as commissioners and said, the buck stops here, and we need to do something because we're charged with the health, safety, and welfare of 370,000 people, Doug DeBoard stepped up and said, I will find a way. So for us, I think it's exciting that we didn't have to raise taxes or charge fees or go to the voters or go to the state or go to the federal government to ask for money. It was sound, wise, conservative budgeting that occurred way before I got here that gave us the freedom to do the right thing. So I just wanted to thank our county manager and certainly Clinton and everyone else here for their work on this endeavor.
So I would like to talk about relationships. You know, this started because of a hero named Kendrick Castillo. And we knew that our community was hurting. And we wanted to come together alongside of them and our school board and the rest of our schools. We knew that it was time to put partisan politics aside, to protect the most vulnerable and most precious asset we have, that being our children. And we, the commissioners, spent hours together debating and reading and listening and praying about what we needed to do for our kids. And I need to say that all of this brought me much closer to our school board. I spent many hours with David Ray. They weren't always happy hours, but we debated and we talked. And I have a respect for President Ray because he looked to what our kids needed. We worked with our charter schools and our private schools. And with my law enforcement background, I also worked with Rich Payne, who's in charge of security for our school district. And I now have a very excellent understanding of the great things that are already in place when it comes to safety for our kids. And I think that's the important message for our citizens, is that we just did a little bit more to make things a little bit better. And I'm very pleased with everything that this community and my fellow commissioners and I worked together to do. So thank you to the staff who made all of this possible. and the citizens who had patience and trust in us to get this done. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. So entertain a motion.
Yes, if there's no further comment, I will make a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between Douglas County and the Douglas County School District in the amount of $6,823,182 for school physical security and supportive mental health resources.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Further comments? I also just want to recognize an important part of this is the law enforcement community from Castle Rock, Lone Tree, Parker, and the Douglas County Sheriff. And we even had some state and federal involvement with things. I just want to point that out because it is, when we look at that, security. But with that also is we know that's physical security, but there's also a very large mental component that comes from law enforcement that goes into keeping our children safe. And I think that's just another important thing to mention. So we have first and second. No further discussion. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Moves us on to item number 2. Resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, State of Colorado, regarding cost sharing for the widening of US 85 from Leviers to milepost 191.75 associated with CDOT, project file CC 0852-106. Presenting for staff is Capital Improvements Project Manager Art Griffith.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you may know or remember, up until 2008, the state appropriated about $500 million a year to augment CDOT's transportation budget, which was to fund a lot of these strategic corridors, such as US 85. In 2009, that amount went to zero. The replacement bill didn't result in any significant funds between 09 and 16. It wasn't until 2017 where CDOT started to see $200 million out of that new bill. Staff, recognizing the importance of the 85 corridor to the Douglas County residents, requested that CDOT would advance the design and right-of-way of a piece that I refer to as the mini gap, where they had widened 4 lanes to the south and 4 lanes to the north, and then they were kind of in a budget lull there. So Douglas County, working with CDOT, paid for the majority of the right-of-way and the design costs to complete that gap. And there were significant accidents in the gap, especially at the transition areas. A few years back, we pursued a Tiger grant. We were one of $9.8 billion worth of requests, requesting $1.5 billion in Tiger grants, and we were unsuccessful. But I stand here today coming to you with another request to improve the corridor, which is an additional $2.5 million towards bringing that to construction. And the project is fairly challenging. The railroad is adjacent to it. They had to shift the alignment into the bluffs further because the railroad, doesn't want any improvements or any water that used to flow to the railroad headed that way. So the project's approximately $40 to $45 million projects. That includes the design and survey, the right-of-way, and the construction. And if we approve this agreement, CDOT has told me they will be able to go to construction here and bid the project in early February. So I encourage your support of this project. Our total contribution to the project would be around 20% if we approve this additional $2.5 million towards construction. Any questions?
Questions for Art?
Can you tell me how many miles we're talking about here?
I can't. It's from essentially, I think it's around 2 to 2.5 miles, somewhere in that range. But it's very challenging because there's a bluff there that we cut in. There's some bridge replacement and repair projects as well involved in the project. So it's, I think it's 2 to 2.5 miles.
I was trying to figure out the miles because we start from Laveers to Sedalia at milepost 191.75. But I think the important message here is that this is a $40 million project, and we're talking about 3 miles or less. So it highlights why transportation dollars are so precious and so necessary and needed, but hard to come by because road construction is expensive. Thank you.
Well, Art, I just wanted to thank you for being here, and certainly as we have sat here and talked about school security as being a top priority for us last year, traffic solutions, that was also a massive priority for us, and certainly with the successful passage of 1A and a number of projects that you have so diligently worked on with engineering and everyone from the county and certainly our partners. This is a really exciting opportunity to move forward on a much-needed project. So thank you, and this will have my support.
And just to echo that, the funding for this project, the $2.5 million, will be coming out of the new fund associated with the approved ballot.
Great. I have no questions. I'll make some comments after we open it up in public. Art, thank you very much. Excellent job, as always. This time, I'll open up for anyone in the audience to address the board regarding item number 2. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any further questions, comments, discussion.
Well, I'm just very grateful that our citizens passed 1A and that we now have the additional funds. I seem to remember that we approved $1.5 million my first year as commissioner, which would have been 2017, to get this project done. And we keep hoping, and now we have got the money we need to get it done. And so I am very excited, and I will be supporting this as well.
I see Mr. Griffiths stood up and down. He always has a little bit to add to it. So, Art, please feel free to come back and,
I just wasn't sure.
Oh, she had a question with that. I gotcha.
My memory is correct. Is that what you're going to say?
Your memory is exactly correct. And, CDOT just came to us in the fall and said the cost is coming in a little higher, and we wanted to bring closure to it. And so we looked at our budget, working with Doug and finance, and looked like what we could do is, go from $1.5 million to $2.5 million to help close that gap.
So we go from 1.5 to 2.5, or did we go from 1.5 to 4?
But we went related to construction, we went from 1.5 million to 2.5 million. And we had, back in 2012, put aside 5.5 million for right-of-way and design, which is about what it's going to cost for those elements.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that explanation, because what you bring to light is that road is just not pavement, and there's so much more to it. And knowing how long you've been working on this and how important this corridor is, I remember when we had petitioned for C-470 to the state, they realized, if we don't do C-470, we're going to run to a greater problem in I-25. And if we don't get Highway 85 done, we'll even have a greater problem all the way around. Well, we already know how important Highway 85 is as to be a feeder road, especially to Castle Rock and to Littleton. So your great work on this with CDOT, and again, the mention about 1A, but this is what we campaigned on. Said we will, if this does pass, we will have immediate response to our transportation issues. And I think this is actually our first one where we actually bring it to a meeting and to have it brought before us to vote on. So thank you so much. Thank you for the ability to partner with CDOT. And we've heard from CDOT that Douglas County is probably the best partner in our state. And it really goes a lot to our engineering department and to Art Griffith. So thank you so much for all the hard work. Much appreciation. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, State of Colorado, regarding cost sharing for the widening of US 85 from Laveers to milepost 191.75, associated with CDOT project number CC 0852-106, 18890.
Second?
We have a first and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you, Art. Thank you, Janet. That concludes our items on our regular agenda. Now, Mr. DeBoer, any further business? And county manager report was enclosed, and commissioner comments.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have heard people accuse this board of not supporting public safety. And we have done a lot for public safety, but on item O of the consent agenda was something that I had never considered that was an additional cost of law enforcement, that being our workers' comp coverage. And in this document, the premium is $394,314. We absolutely need workers' compensation insurance for our employees. But as I read through the document, it explained that with the additional SROs that we hired this year and the tier changes that the board approved in order to be competitive with our salaries, the premium, those two items cost an additional 5% into our premium. So the effective year-over-year change in our premium was 8.3%. And of that 8.3%, 7% of that was because of law enforcement. And I'm not pointing this out saying we need to cheap. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this is an additional illustration of how we support our law enforcement and we take care of them. And our risk manager, Megan Detweiler, is here. So I'd just like to thank you, Megan, for making sure that our law enforcement people are taken care of. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Chair, we've talked a lot today about how nimble this board is and staff and certainly all of our partners. But while we're doing all of this, money is being moved around really quickly, and none of it would be possible without the hard work of the budget and finance department. So just wanted to acknowledge all of the fine folks that work in finance and make sure that all of these big ideas actually occur.
And I'll just chime in too with the fellow commissioners talking about fiscal responsibility, and I think that it demonstrates, the comments demonstrate how important it is. And Commissioner Thomas, thank you for bringing up Megan Detweiler, because this is one thing we're going to give an award for, probably special recognition for, but the cost savings with our risk management issues, specifically workman's comp and our liability policies. In fact, there was, I believe, it was liability insurance. The carrier, no, we're not even going to entertain a bid this year. She convinced them to do a bid, and actually we didn't award the bid to them, but she convinced them. She's done wonderful work, so I just want to really point out great work Megan does and saving the dollars for the taxpayers and great fiscal responsibility. Thank you, Megan.
Well, you surprised me. I thought you were going to talk about the devil in Georgia.
Oh, we actually can report that now. Yes, we can. But we might have to, you guys might get tired of hearing this, but we actually...
Are you going to sing?
Oh,
Not,
sounds like an invitation.
I'll just hum along. But we have a concert each year at the Douglas County Fair and Rodeo, and this year we're all excited because it'll be a young man of 83 years old who's presenting. So get your tickets now for Charlie Daniels on August 1st on that after the rodeo. It'll be a great show, I'll guarantee you. He was here almost 20 years ago and just rocked the house, and I'll guarantee you he'll do it again. So thank you, everyone. Concludes our business meeting. We are adjourned.